Thirst for Tomorrow. In the year 2147, the world had become an unforgiving landscape of scarcity and strife. Essential resources were as rare as forgotten memories, but within the towering confines of a domed city named Arcadia, the privileged few reveled in a mirage of abundance. The dome, an oasis of prosperity, shielded its inhabitants from the harsh realities that festered beyond its transparent walls. As the elite basked in the glow of artificial sunlight and indulged in the illusion of plenty, the majority outside the dome faced the cruel embrace of scarcity and oppression. The contrast between the opulence within and the desperation without fanned the flames of discontent. A rebellion, born from the collective thirst for a better tomorrow, simmered in the shadows, its flames fueled by the gnawing hunger for justice. Among the forgotten masses, a charismatic leader emerged, Eleanor, a voice of dissent against the stark inequality that defined their world. The rebellion, like a whisper that gained momentum, questioned the morality of survival within the dome, while the rest of humanity languished in the shadows. The ethical dilemma of resource allocation became a rallying cry, echoing through the alleyways and forgotten corners where the city's secrets hid. As tensions escalated, the walls of Arcadia echoed with the muted cries of those relegated to the outskirts. The rebellion, fueled by the thirst for a tomorrow free from the shackles of oppression, stood on the precipice of challenging the very foundation of the privileged world within the dome. The ethical quandaries of survival, cloaked in the facade of prosperity, would soon unravel, and the future held the promise of either liberation or the unrelenting thirst for justice denied. The rebellion, led by Eleanor, gained momentum as discontent simmered among the oppressed masses. The forgotten, armed with a collective yearning for a fairer future, rallied against the fortified walls of Arcadia. The dome, a symbol of privilege, stood as an impervious barrier between two worlds, one bathed in the glow of artificial abundance, the other immersed in the shadows of scarcity. Eleanor's message resonated like a clarion call through the desolate outskirts, uniting the disenfranchised with a common purpose. The ethical dilemmas of resource allocation and societal inequality were no longer abstract notions but lived experiences that fueled the rebellion's fervor. The thirst for a tomorrow where every voice held equal weight echoed through the dilapidated structures beyond the dome. As the rebellion grew, whispers of dissent reached the ears of those within Arcadia. The privileged class, shielded from the grim realities of life outside, found themselves confronted with the uncomfortable truths of their prosperity. A sense of unease permeated the opulent halls as the elite grappled with the morality of their existence and the consequences of the disparity that flourished under the dome. Within the rebellion's ranks, however, internal debates surfaced. The ethical fabric of their cause began to fray as questions arose about the means employed to achieve a more just future. The thirst for justice, once a unifying force, now faced the risk of being tainted by the compromises necessary for a rebellion on the brink of challenging the status quo. The path to tomorrow, fraught with ethical quandaries, stretched before them, its destination uncertain. The rebellion, having breached the walls of Arcadia's consciousness, faced an increasingly complex landscape. Within the dome, whispers of dissent resonated among the privileged, leading to a subtle but perceptible shift in the dynamics of the city. Some questioned the morality of their prosperity, while others recoiled from the stark realization that their comfort was built upon the suffering of the forgotten masses outside. As the rebellion grappled with internal debates, Eleanor found herself standing at a crossroads. The ethical compromises necessary to sustain the uprising tested the very principles that had fueled their cause. The thirst for justice, once a unifying force, now threatened to fracture the rebellion from within. The shadows of doubt, cast by the harsh light of necessity, loomed over the movement. Meanwhile, Arcadia's ruling class, feeling the tremors of dissent within, responded with a combination of fear and resolve. Security measures tightened, surveillance increased, and the privilege gap widened as a defensive mechanism against the encroaching rebellion. The city, once a bastion of prosperity, now teetered on the edge of a precipice, its future uncertain. As the domed city stood on the brink of upheaval, the ethical dilemmas of survival and societal inequality reached a critical juncture. The thirst for tomorrow, once a beacon of hope, now faced the harsh realities of compromise and sacrifice. The story unfolded in the murky terrain where justice clashed with necessity, leaving the characters both within and beyond the dome to grapple with the consequences of their choices. The destiny of Arcadia, and the ethical quandaries embedded in its foundation, hung in the balance, waiting to be defined by the unfolding chapters of a future yet to be written. As tensions within and outside Arcadia reached a crescendo, the city stood at the precipice of transformation. The rebellion, despite its internal struggles, maintained its fervor, fueled by the collective thirst for a more just and equitable tomorrow. The walls of the domed city, once impenetrable, now trembled under the weight of discontent. Elena, torn between the ethical ideals that ignited the rebellion and the compromises necessary for its survival, faced a moment of reckoning. The choices made in the crucible of revolution weighed heavily on her shoulders. The thirst for justice, now intertwined with the reality of sacrifice, demanded a high price, one that would define not only the fate of Arcadia, but also the principles upon which the rebellion had been built. As the rebellion reached a pivotal moment, a compromise was struck, a delicate balance between the quest for justice and the pragmatism required to navigate the complex web of societal change. The domed city, shaken by the seismic shifts both within and beyond, opened its gates to the voices that had long been silenced. The forgotten masses, once relegated to the shadows, stepped into the light of a transformed Arcadia. The ethical dilemmas of resource allocation and societal inequality did not vanish overnight, but the rebellion had succeeded in challenging the status quo. The domed city, no longer a fortress of privilege, embraced a new beginning where justice, though hard-won and imperfect, flowed more equitably. The thirst for tomorrow, once a distant dream, became a reality shaped by the resilience of those who dared to question the morality of survival and strive for a future where every voice, regardless of privilege or circumstance, held the promise of being heard.